Evening, folks. We go. Well, hang on a second. I made an arse of that. There we go. Hey.
There we go.
It wouldn't be a main Meister live stream without some fuck up, eh? Even though half the time it's never my fault. Right, before we start, folks, Colin, and Craig, why does my OBS keep forgetting my mister? When I go to it, it's there, but it just doesn't see it, and I've got to add it again as a source and then delete the old one. And then when I go to it again, it doesn't see it, and I've got to delete it and then add it again. Why is that? Why does it keep doing that?
It may be changing the device ID. I don't know. If you go to the capture device itself in OBS, rather than getting and deleting it, have a look at the properties and see what the source device is next time that happens.
Right.
And see if you can change the source device to the correct.
It's pretty much what Colin said, because I tend to find that if I open up my OBS and the camera doesn't come on, if the light's on and nothing comes on, what I tend to do is I deactivate and then reactivate, and then if something doesn't happen, then I go basically into the properties, and all I do is I just switch camera, because I've got two cameras, so I just switch to another one, switch back, and it suddenly comes on. It's usually because you're using a USB-free camera. Are you going for a hub? Are you going for anything?
No. I remember I had that carry on the last time. I've never.
Yeah. So basically, all I can think of is it's using the ID.
Yeah.
It's a different ID this time when you opened up OBS compared to when you opened it up last time. Something's changed. Yeah. That's usually it.
Yeah. It's not a deal breaker. I mean, because the weird thing is, if I go to a different scene, and it'll work in that scene, when I go to like webcam full screen or whatever, it'll be there. It's weird.
I've usually identified all my errors just by going to the help and going to the logs. And when I go down, you'll always come up with it, and it will tell you exactly the reason. It will say things like missing frame at this, and you can Google it, and then you'll find all these people that have sorted that out this way, and choosing a different codec and all of this. You might find, because the camera never started, it will tell you.
The thing is, it's not the camera. It's not the camera. The camera's fine. That seems to have fixed itself. It's the Miracast thing, which is like my wee capture card thing.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, in OBS, it will tell you the error, like could not capture or could not start.
Yeah. Not to worry. Anyway,
I'll go into it, and it'll say it's a different system, of course. It's Linux, but it'll say Dev Video 2, and the actual camera then is named on a different device number, which says the name of the camera.
Have you updated your drivers recently?
No, I've not done anything, mate. No.
No problem. Anyway, don't want to go too technical. We'll move on.
Welcome. It's Friday, thank Christ. So we'll start off. Craig, how's your week been? I don't want to get any spoilers, because obviously you've got your own blog, but how's your last couple of weeks been? What have you been kind of doing with yourself?
Yeah, what's this week been like? I'll tell you what, a bit mixed, a challenge, but overall fine. It's not been disastrous. Nothing spectacular like my clutch has gone or something. Can't say any of that's going on. I'd have liked to have done more things, but like I got the Switch 2. I'd have liked to have gone on that maybe a bit more.
Yeah, I'm going to come to that. I've got that to talk about. How's the weather down in
it's bloody hot today. I've changed my t-shirt twice. Don't normally do that. No. So it's been hot today. It's been raining, at some parts.
Yeah.
But apparently it's thunderstorms, from now on, and then a bit cooler next week, I've been told.
We were forecast rain, but the last 2 days have been pretty well. No, yesterday was crap, but today has been pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. We had about 6 weeks of beautiful weather. When I say beautiful, I mean, it depends what kind of weather you're. If you're a skier, then sun is not beautiful weather. But yeah, we've had really sunny weather, and then it's just been it was shit for about 2 weeks. But this week's been all right. It's been sunny. A lot of rain as well, but then that's Scotland for you.
Well, I phoned up Michael Fish and I said, "Oh, Mickey," I said, "what's it going to be like tomorrow?" And he said it's going to be windy, and that sort of like scared me, so I put the phone down.
Look over falling trees.
And yourself, Colin? How are things? What have you been up to this week?
Nights.
Oh, have you?
Night shifts, yeah. So basically, I've been Walking Dead. So I've been the subject of The Last of Us or something like that on the wrong side of the fence. So yeah, and now I've had the last 2 days off. I meant to stream yesterday. Things happened and I couldn't. I meant to stream tonight. Tesco decided to book our delivery slot for between 7 and 8, so that was gone through the window. So that'll be tomorrow now. My 64 stream will be tomorrow. So yeah, I've had no time to do anything. I've had a lot of things turn up and to do, but no time to do everything. I got a video I made earlier, which I haven't uploaded yet. And
can I just say, Colin, I just hope that when the thumbnail goes out, it wasn't 2 seconds, because you're like that.
It's one finger. It's that finger, not it's
wrong
not that
angle.
finger.
It was at the wrong angle. Aye, that was an unfortunate one. Sorry, mate.
Yeah. So I made a video earlier. It's a 3-part video. I've unboxed an adapter, a PCB, and a bit of gameplay for a choplifter PCB I've now got. So that'll be going uploaded shortly, as soon as I get the chance.
Nice.
So yeah. I've had a busy week. I've got you're talking. This will come up in conversation later, I expect. And look at that. It's actually blue, but it's light blue. So that's my Switch. But it gets
almost like I was almost going to lift it up again. It was almost like see-through. It looked like a bloody Predator.
It's the green screen.
It's because of its green screen. Yeah.
Ah, right. It is. It's
like it's close enough the green. It just shows the background straight through.
So that's a green screen. I'm trying to I think, is that his bloody kitchen? I'm looking at what is that? What is that? Some like 1960s
That is
arcade?
an old arcade at the local, the other side of the city. We got St. Fagans Welsh History Museum, and these are old arcade games still functioning. You can put your old coins in there and play the arcade. I mean that one you see there with the shiny thing and the cat on it is actually called Pussy Shoot.
Okay, yeah.
See, I was going to turn around.
That was before it became innuendo.
That's where I was going to turn around and say, that's the top of the range, most modern arcade that you can get up north. They've just converted from a gas to electricity.
I think that game is one of the most modern games in there, because I can actually remember that when I was a kid. I can't remember the others when I was a kid, except again in museum arcade sort of thing. But I can remember that one as a kid.
So what's that? What's it called? Pussy Grab or something? What's it called?
Pussy Shoot, I think it is.
Shoot. What? Can you explain it to the viewers? And I'm glad this isn't a podcast.
It's a mechanical game. You actually shoot cats.
Ah, right.
It's an electromechanical game. It's you get silhouettes of cats come up, and you've got this little gun at the front there. I mean, if I get out of the way, you see the gun there?
Oh, I see it.
Yeah, well, you actually shoot cats, and they knock down like a duck shoot thing.
Oh,
but it's with cats.
And you remember that?
I do remember it when I was a kid.
It's got a dome front, hasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Hasn't it got a dome front?
Yes, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah, that's what the reflection is in the glass on the front there.
See, my earliest memory is always that shark attack, that.
Yeah, I remember Shark Attack from Jaws, but I've never actually seen
I don't know what it is. It's just buried in my brain. The shark that twists. It's sort of like shudders like this when you kill it. It sort of like thrashes about in the water.
Yeah,
with blood around it.
And that's a rotating lens in the cabinet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
was that what it was? So it was purely mechanical then. Jaws one, was it really?
Wasn't it little prisms? Wasn't it little?
Yes. Prisms, lights, and spinning lenses.
I bet you one of them goes for a few quid now if you had one of them. Eh?
Oh, I bet.
I don't know how many there's left. How many there is left? They used to be all over the seaside when I used to go to, like Prestatyn.
Yeah.
And all that sort of stuff. But after a while, you never saw them, and then I wondered to myself, just how many are there in existence? I should think more in America than here.
Yeah, I can't find anything with any prices on. So
yeah, the thing is, and I always say that about people think why did you chuck stuff in the bucket and all that, but when did that Pussy Shoot thing come out? When would that have come out?
I believe it was in the 1960s.
Yeah, so when something like that came out or Shark Attack came out, when Space Invaders appeared, if you were a cafe owner or an arcade owner, and somebody says, "Look, do you want me to swap it out for Space Invaders?" You'll go, "Absolutely." Or if somebody says to you, "I'll give you 20 quid for the Shark Attack," aye, you would probably have gladly paid somebody by a lorry to get rid of it and take it to the tip.
Because it took up so much space, didn't it?
Yeah.
And it's only now that we look back and go, "What, you know, my God, I remember somebody throwing a Shark Attack in the bucket." But back then, it's like now I've got all manner of like old phones. I've got an iPhone 2, an iPhone 3, and all that, and I'm like, they're useless. They're absolutely useless. And I've got an iPad 2, which I've deliberately kept all like the apps on it, and half the stuff doesn't work in it, and it's completely pointless. And I'd be as well just throw it in the bucket because it's useless. But in maybe 30 years' time, they'll go for an absolute fortune, and folk will say to you, "Why did you throw that in the bucket? I can't believe that you binned that." But right now, it's useless. And Shark Attack 40 years ago would have been looked upon as it's just taking up space.
I do think there's a difference between things like phones. I mean, okay, they're fine as display pieces, but they'll never work again because there's no network that they'll actually connect to anymore. I mean, the original iPhone only connects to 2G, and that's been completely shut down in this country.
Yeah, they take the masts down, and that's it. You have to recreate the GSM signal.
Yeah,
you, for
it's like the old telephones which are in museums. You know, the ones they used to plug into the wall. They didn't have a connector; it was permanently wired.
I tend to find that the only nostalgia you have is the form factor of the design, the ringtones that are on them, and maybe what little game that came with it, like Snake. And that's probably all you're going to really remember about the old phones. I went from this to a flip phone. This was my first flip phone, and there was my first clamshell, and here was my first. That's it.
My first mobile phone took a SIM card the size of a credit card.
Yeah. Is that right? Yeah.
A Philips Diga from 02.
When did that come out?
Oh God, that was I got it in the early 2000s, I think. It's got to be the early 2000s. I think I was driving by the time I got a mobile phone.
My best old phone was a Sony Z1. It was like a credit card Rolodex type thing. It had a liquid crystal display, and when you moved the jog dial, because it had a jog dial, you moved it up and down, and it span around like a Rolodex like this.
Nice.
And it was it really was nice. That
I think mine was the LG 350, which had a slide-out keyboard.
Oh yeah.
I think I remember.
Slid down, didn't it?
Yeah. That a blue thing it was. Yeah.
It's funny how the technology in phones. I mean, you had the 3210 and Nokia 3210, and I can't even remember. It was like an LED LCD screen, and then you didn't get color. Did you get color LCD? I can't remember.
Dell's off to get something. Something's in reach. I got a few things for discussion later. Something you mentioned earlier is going to be. I got a few things here ready for that.
What's he going to show us?
I had some. Oh, there we go. There you are. There's a BlackBerry.
I was just going to see that. Blackberries must have been one of the. I mean, it's a complete elephant now. But back then, it was like everybody wanted them. That was what businesses.
Email.
I never wanted a BlackBerry. I even when the guards got theirs, and I was looking at them, and I was thinking, look at the screen size on this. How are you supposed to work with that? I could never get on with it.
That's a work phone, and they never asked for it back. That's it. That's why it's there.
Yeah.
No other reason other than to remember. Oh yeah, Blackberries. Yeah.
You think about like, I mean, when the iPhone came along, that just killed things like the BlackBerry. It killed digital bloody cameras pretty much stone dead, unless you were a kind of a photographer.
I took the mick out of the iPhone when it first came out. I thought, what are they pushing this for? I mean, what I got in my hand is 3G, and yet that can only do 2G. You know, I was taking the mick at the time because and mine was a Motorola A835 brick at the time, so connected to 3.
I like the idea, but from my point of view, I thought of it like the car industry. I thought this is just a slab of glass.
Yeah,
it's generic. It's a nice screen. All these icons.
Same with any phone.
Same
with any phone these days. It's just generic.
As far as I'm concerned, I said this is the Sierra of the car industry. It's like every car now is going to look like this.
You know what? I think is incredible. I was doing in Bristol Airport it was last month actually, and I sat down waiting to get on the plane. I had about an hour to wait, and there was a phone sitting on a chair, and people were just coming and going, and eventually I was actually going to pick it up and take it to somebody and say, look, somebody's left this. I thought, well, no, I'll leave it because somebody's going to go shit my phone. Eventually a guy came back and goes, oh, fucking hell, I forgot that. Now, I don't know what kind of phone it was. Chances are it was probably like £500 worth of phone. Nobody's even remotely interested in nicking a phone because we've all got them. You know,
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, people pay, I don't know what the latest Samsung or the latest iPhone is. It's probably like £1,500 or more. You would never have dreamt of going out the house with something that's worth like £1,000. That's just mental. But, I mean, I know in London, Lee's son's partner, he's actually lost 2 phones. He's been on the phone and somebody's gone past on a scooter and just grabbed it out of his hand. But in the main, nobody steals phones because we've all got them. We're not interested.
Yeah, I've been so uninterested in phones that I used to know back in the day what the flagship phone was. So if it was a Samsung, it'd be the Galaxy series or whatever it is, right? Now, you know, if you went on Samsung, as you put flagship phone, it'd be coming up with something like S23 or Z Fold 6 or whatever it is, and it's like, oh well, there's a flagship in the Fold range and a flagship in this range and a flagship in. I'm just gonna, you've lost me already. I'm fed up. I don't really care.
If somebody's, I know if I said to you, there you go, Craig, there's a £2,000 phone, just take it. You'd probably be like, all right, thanks. You wouldn't be excited. I certainly wouldn't be excited if somebody gave me a brand new phone.
Yeah, it'll have the same Android as everything else has got on it with a UI touch whiz interface or whatever is over the top of it. So it won't even be the Google.
So see, when you guys do get, well, Craig, I know you're an Android man. Colin, what are you?
Android,
yeah. When you get a new phone, whenever that is, do you immediately make it look like the old phone with the same apps and it looks like the same phone?
I actually do a complete system transfer. I do when it says, do you want a copy from another device? Yes, please. Yeah. All it goes across. All I got to do is log in again for everything and figure out which apps are no longer working because they're no longer supported under the new version of Android.
It's
one of the biggest problems because I bought a few games. I didn't pay my own money. I used Google Rewards, but I bought a few games which no longer work. And when you ask the developers, we just haven't been able to do that. We can't keep up. And so they don't work anymore. I mean, I used to play Elite on Android. It worked on the last phone. It's not even in the Play Store for this one. And if you try and sideload it, it won't work. It won't run. One of the newer ones, Switch and Shoot, which is a one-button game. You might have seen it in the arcades. It's in Arcade Club in Blackpool for a start. It's one button, and I bought that. I've got it on Steam as well. It's a fun little game. But even that don't work now. And that's the one. The developer says, I just can't keep up with all the changes in the system all the time. So so I've given up basically on gaming on Android. Yeah, I just use it's my communication tool. It is a phone is the ultimate personal computer, but it's got limitations. It's not a gaming device for sure.
It's funny how when you think about, like, back in the, I don't know, go back to 1985, if somebody had brought out a joystick or a gamepad and it was like that, and you just used your finger like touchscreen, you would actually think that was going to be the ultimate controller. It's like not even, there's no movement. It's like accurate, and yet I cannot stand. I used to have MAME on my phone, and it was more just a novelty. Somebody would mention, I remember playing this game called Rolling Thunder. I'll be, you mean this? Bloody hell! And you have a go of it. It's completely unusable. Touch controllers are awful. There's only a couple of games that I play in that thing, and that's it.
I think there was a time where I felt a bit the same as you, Alan. Only I think the DS cured me of any of that, because when the DS came out, it had, obviously it was a handheld, and so there was, it was a joystick, but then it had touch screen, and then you could blow into the microphone and this and that.
That's right, yeah.
And it had so many of these extra things that, and then the Vita had touch at the back or something, and you can sort of like rub it
that's
back. Right. And to be quite honest, I then went, I like the old days when I had a joystick in my hand with a button at the front.
I know.
I'm getting confused now. It's asking me to blow, and then it's asking me to step back and use my finger, and now it's asking me. And I didn't know whether I was supposed to be picking it up, putting it on the table. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. It just annoyed me.
I take it the whole gimmick about blowing is it was just using the microphone. That was all it was.
That's it, yeah.
Aye. So instead of going, boo, you were going, that was it. And they were trying to say that it recognised you blowing.
Sometimes it recognises you blowing.
Yeah, just a quick hello to a few people. Let's see who's in tonight. We've got StreamYard. Oh no, he's not a person. We've got Steve's Gaming. We've got Alex. We've got Craig. We've got Johnny. We've got Ronnie. We've got Colin. We've got I Take the Fifth all the way from Pennsylvania. Good evening, or should I say good morning? Thank you very much for dropping in. These waffle things is just me usually. It used to be about gaming, but it seems to have deteriorated into me just complaining and shouting abuse at people in the car and what have you.
I have a few rants coming up in my next vlog.
And we've got Mr. Graham Bowie.
A lot of good stuff as well.
We've got Graham Bowie as well. How you doing, Graham?
Yeah.
Nice one. And Scott as well. Good evening. Good turnout.
I'm looking at all three of us, and I think I can just about pass as being in my 30s. So count me in as the youngster amongst us, and you two could be the old farts that complain an awful lot. And I'll tell you what it's like to be a gamer in your 30s. There you are. How's that? I can get away with my boyish good looks.
I was at the gym tonight. I've started going to the gym again. I've been going waver, and I was doing it at the gym, and I was lifting wee piddly weights, and there was a guy in front of me, and he was doing like pull-ups, but then he was actually doing a pull-up and then going into a handstand up light above the bar. And I'm like, fucking hell, I'm getting old. Wanker. Dear me. Honestly. So what games-wise, boys, I mean, obviously we're all into kind of old-style games. Colin, what do you, when you're not making videos, do you play games for fun?
Yes.
And what system? What
system? Not a hell of a lot. It's when I get time to do it. Most of the time I'm watching stuff or actually busy around the house or at work or whatever. But I do. I mean, if for example, if I just load this up at the moment. I got that loaded up. No. Hang on. Let's see if I can get that closer to the
Street Fighter. Is that Street Fighter?
Is that donut?
Oh, yeah.
Donut Dodo, yep.
Yeah.
Dodo, yeah.
Yeah. So
the game that you mentioned, and then basically I looked at my Steam's friend list, and every bugger bought it around about 3 days later.
Yeah, I got this for about £2.50 on the eShop, and of course I got this now as well, which I'm in the middle of setting up as a standalone arcade thing. So, yeah.
Nice. So you don't actually get a chance to play many games then, really? No.
Not an awful lot, but I do when I get the chance.
So if you had, just supposing you had all the kids said, we're going out, Dad, your wife says, I'll take the kids out for 4 hours, play games, what would you play? What machine would you play, do you think?
I think I'd be going for arcades on the Mister.
Yeah.
Some of the early to mid 80 arcade games on the Mister. That's my favourite period. Yeah. What
about yourself, Craig? Have you been playing much outside YouTube stuff?
Yeah, other than the friends request stuff, I must admit I go on the Mister more than anything. If I'm not on the Mister, I'm playing a very, very cheap, brief Steam game that's got no 20,000 hours that you've got to put into it to actually get anywhere in. I'm not into this grinding and all that sort of stuff. I'll put something in that basically you can play for about 5, 10, 15 minutes and then come off. With my mother like it is, it's very difficult for me to put any sort of hours into anything at the moment. So really, it came at a time where those Vampire Survivor games are all sort of like coming back to me again now, because I can just put them in and go round and round and round, kiting everything and then bugger off, and go and make my mum a cup of tea and then come back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was actually playing what's it called again? Vampire. What was it again?
Survivors.
Yeah, I was actually playing that a couple of weeks ago. I was
the
paying.
one I'm playing at the moment is something called Zombieville 3D.
Is it similar to kind of game mechanics? Is it?
Well, no, but it's rogue. It's what they call roguelike. What they mean by roguelike is just like Vampire Survivors. You'll get to the end because ultimately you will die. That's what Vampire Survivors basically is, right? So when you get to the end, you've got money and you've got this, that, and the other. You'll then perk yourself up or buy a weapon or unlock a character or whatever it is. You go back in, ad infinitum. The whole point is how long can you last? And each time you've got a different build because now you've got better armor on or you've got better whatever. So in Zombieville 3D looks very much like a isometric zombie game. All these zombies just come up from the ground and you've got a weapon with bullets. When you wander around, you'll find crates. You'll pick up other weapons. Right? It's however long you can last, and then basically you do it again, but this time that you've obviously got a perk, something that where your energy will regenerate 1 second over 5 minutes or whatever it is, a little bit better. Mm-hmm. It was in a sale, $3.99. It's just fun because where Vampire Survivors, you have no control over the fire mechanism. In this one, it's like a twin shooter.
Can I just call you a sec? I take the 5th. This is the Taki Udon Mr. Pie. This one cost me, including postage, $208, which came to about 150 quid. So I don't know what it'd be like with the tariffs over there, but if you can get them when they're in stock, have a look. Just look for Mr. Pie, Mr. Pie, 2 words, with Taki Udon, TAKIUDON, and you will find them. Keep an eye on them. When they go into stock, pick one of them up. They're about 1/3 of the price of the normal Mister, and they're identical in function. I
just wonder though, are they still a preferred device over the multi-system 2, which is quite a.
I think it's all a matter of preference. It's just as good. It's just the way it's a form factor you prefer.
I think I would go. I mean, I'm in an hour over cancelling the multi-system 2, and I'll give my reasons for it. I think your multi-system there will allow me to play an old device like that.
Yes, it will. Right? Yep, it's identical.
The multi-system 2 will not.
Aha.
What was that deal you showed? Was that the MIDI thing?
Yeah. Now, I had an argument with them. I mean, I sent an email to them and I said, I love Neil's show and all of that sort of stuff, but you made a particular quote. You said it's backwardly compatible with all devices. Mm-hmm. Now, if you make a statement like that, then I'm expecting I could able to put whatever I want that's in my Mister onto this, right? But I didn't see the USB user port when you were showing it around and taking the flaps off and all of this sort of stuff. And they said, no, you have to buy the snack cartridge and then you have to buy the Pi 2, whatever it is. And then you have to do some soldering and all this. Whoa. I said, whoa. Now, I do a bit of soldering. I'm not that great. But when you start talking down this route, you told me that this is compatible with stuff. You've basically took that port and you've made a new cartridge type port on the front, and you've made this snack system, and I'm sure it's wonderful. But I would have loved your multi-system too to have been able to play my old MIDI thing with it without me having to buy your snack cartridge. And now that you've told me that you can't do that, then basically I've got to now go down the route of buying your snack thing, and I've got to buy this other, and I've got to solder and put it in and all of this sort of stuff. And you're not even offering a service to make that, and you're not offering a company that will do it for me either. So really, if I buy this thing, I've got a Mister without MIDI. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a big chunk out of the Mister I can't do for a premium product like you've got. You know, I don't blame. I don't think they're a bad company or anything like that. But they took 8 weeks to tell me all of that, and I knew it really day one because I just actually sent the email saying, "Can you tell me if the old MIDI would?" I pretty knew it wouldn't, but I wanted to ask the question because you had to ask the questions before the pre-order. I didn't want to pre-order it unless I had the answer, and they answered 2 weeks after I pre-ordered. That's how long it took for them to come back to me. It's a simple question, but they must have been inundated, I would have thought. And that's why I went, I'll let it go, you know.
It's basically a one or two person team. And they are going to be inundated, aren't they?
Yeah. But to actually take 8 weeks to come to the definitive answer, no, you will have to buy the snack cartridge. That's when the last email came through. I went, 8 weeks to tell me that. 8 weeks. That's poor. You know, and they actually said in the email, if you have to cancel, we understand. It's almost like we don't give a shit. That when somebody says something like that in the first couple of lines, I just go, you know, I just don't like that. I'd rather them said, I'm sorry we're going to lose your customer. I wish we could have offered something else, but it didn't. It just said, if you have to cancel, you have to cancel. That's how they worded it. Went, right, okay. Now I know who I'm dealing with.
One interesting thing, and I get what people are saying. I get asked a lot when I'm doing live streams. People say, "Oh, what emulator are you using?" I'll say, "I'm using a thing called the Mister."
Yeah.
Go, what's that? And you tell them what it is, and I go, "How much is that?" I'll go, "Well, 400 quid. Oh, that's expensive." I mean, you know, to use the old analogy of like what we paid on for like an Amiga game or a SNES game back in the day, you paid 40 quid, whatever it is, 400, or even what, I don't know, I think I paid 230 quid from a Commodore 64 back in 1983. So, you know, a £400 Mister now is a lot cheaper than a Commodore 64 was back in 1985. But if I was to like put all my consoles, a PlayStation 4, an Xbox X, my Mister, whatever it is, and pick what one I would want, what one gives me the most value for money, I would always say the Mister. You have to sort of, you have to appreciate what the Mister does. I think once you've used one, and there's a lot of people in here tonight that have got them and used them, and I was late to the kind of party because I was like, well, it's no different from emulation. But once you get it, once you actually use it, it's such a beautiful thing. And I would say if you're into playing any games up to and including the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn, get a Mister. It's an absolute no-brainer, and you can get rid of everything else. But what's great is there's obviously quite a few. You know, £400. I'm not saying that £400 isn't a lot of money. It is a lot of money, and a lot of folk, you know, we don't have a lot of money. Money is scarce at the moment. There are other cheaper options, and I'll let you talk about the other options that are available if you want to be able to effectively have a Mister kind of on a budget. What other options?
Well, that's it. That's the one I just said. It's the Tachyon. I haven't looked into the multi-system because consoleizing it doesn't do it for me. But the Mr. Pi is, as I say, it was £150, $208 including postage, $190 raw price. As for the lot, that was complete, and that includes also a USB-C to USB-C power cable. Of course, you've got to plug that in then to a charger with enough power. I mean, if you haven't got much attached, a 2-amp one is fine, but you go for a 4-amp one, and that's even better. I've recently got this has arrived today. I haven't had a chance to try it out yet, which is another nice little power brick, which is going to power both Mr. Pi and monitor together. So I can just put it all in a box eventually, or in a cabinet, and just carry it around, put it down on the desk, and play whatever I want to. But that, as I say, it came out with, as I say, $200. I'm gonna round it up, $210, and you got a full Mister system there, which you can add. I won't say you can add extra cards on it because the cards are pretty specific or very, very I think there are slight differences between that and the main Mister, which is why it comes with its own set of main cards. But things like the Mister, the MT32 Pi plugs in perfectly. It's got all the same outputs, and yes, it's yes, I've actually used my current Mister. I plugged it in, and it's as if I'm using the same Mister. So as I say, it's identical in most ways.
That's good though. So, I mean, obviously, what's his name? I Take the Fifth. He comes from is it Philadelphia? No, beg your pardon. Where did you come from again? Pennsylvania, I think it was. Which
yeah.
I'm shit at geography, but if I'm not mistaken, that is in the United States of America. So yeah, he'll probably get it even cheaper then if you got it.
Don't bet on it with the tariffs.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Aye.
Yeah.
Which is
issues. He's been saying there's been issues, but
see, I didn't look at
issues over there, which I'm not going to go into here because this isn't the place for it. Are depressing.
Yeah. I didn't look at the multi-system 2 as a consoleized version of it. I just saw it as a different form factor. If you didn't like a brick, you had a nicer sort of like looking front. The nice thing I would say about the multi-system 2, the nicest thing, is it can be even cheaper than what Collins just bought, because they do a version that's more about plugging it into the TV, right? You know, the person that wants it so dumbed down that you just plug it in, turn it on. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't have those RGB ports at the back and an Ethernet port and all of this sort of stuff. They've made it to the point where it's a full Mister, but basically you've got limited connectability to monitors and stuff, right? That's the dumbed down. That's the dumbed down one, and that one is £30 shy of 200. It's like 179 or something.
That's great.
Silly. It's like that's when you're turning around and going, wow, look, you've got a Mister dumbed down, and not that dumbed down. I'm not saying it's dumbed down like the interface is different. I'm just saying it's less connectability, Mister.
So what connectivity are you actually losing then?
Well, you just got a HDMI port at the back.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Right, you haven't got composite, you ain't got RGB, you haven't
got audio out.
Yeah. See what I mean? And if you wanted like, oh, Mister is just too expensive for me, but you actually then suddenly find out that you've got a Mister within your grasp at 20 or so pounds below 200 quid, and you can just plug it in, and you could give it to your kids or something, and they just plug it in and play. You know what I mean? And they've got all those systems. I think that one works for a bigger audience that doesn't need to go too technical. You go the other route, and it's more expensive, but it's not backwardly compatible with my MIDI thing, so I have an argument.
Yeah. Kevin's asking, does the Mister output 1080?
Yeah.
Yeah, it scales. But if you've got the analog board, you can also send it to VGA, to any old monitor, and as long as it supports if it supports the frequency, it'll run it at native resolution. You can also use VGA scaling, which basically does it again. It upscales everything to 1080p. But yes, it's or whatever resolution the monitor is, because it's not just 1080p. You can use. You can set whatever resolution the monitor supports.
Yeah.
Because I got a VGA monitor, a Dell one, which I use as well.
That's right. The multi-system, they're heavily promoting the fact that there's dip switches in there for 24-bit and all sorts of stuff. You know, little dip switches.
Yeah.
You can do it all in software.
Yeah.
This is all just, I've made it easier for you.
What I absolutely love about the Mister is its simplicity. There's like two screens of options. Set your define keys. What else is there? You can turn on scan lines, which I think look fantastic. That's just my opinion. But it's the same 10 options on every. I mean, how many cores are there? There's maybe about 200-300 arcade games supported. Every computer that you can think of, up to and including like the Apple.
This is what I love about the Mister.
Yeah,
where you can put any other argument. That simple, consistent interface throughout every core beats any main front end or any emulator front end, Raspberry Pi or anything, wipes the floor with it in my eyes. Because
Absolutely.
it's so fast and consistent throughout the whole
I get fed up actually with some of these front, Ballacera front ends and all that sort of stuff, and people turning around saying, "Oh, because you can't show your picture box and the boxes of the cartridge and that, I'm not interested in it," and all of this. I'd rather just have it tell me that's the game in text.
It's a huge part of the appeal for me. I mean, when I did my video about why, in my opinion, classic gamers need to get a Mister, is because when I switch, I've not got it connected up anymore. But if you get a TV, a keyboard, and you've got your little innocuous little box sitting over there, you switch it on, you pick, say, the Auric, you pick the Auric core, you press enter, you're faced with a black screen that says ready and a flashing cursor. That's it. As far as you could be, you've actually got a real Oculus. Shut up. You've got a real Auric. It's like you've got as near as damn as having a real Auric. If you load up a Dragon 32, you've got the Dragon 32 screen. Right, now how do I load a game? If I was to get the consoleized version of it, that's what we'll call it. Again, it's like, it's kind of, it's in your face. You know that you're not running a real Dragon 32 because you've got this fancy console. I like the fact I've got this little white box that sits over there. It's nondescript. And like I said, when you load up a core for an old computer, you've got to Google, how do I load a game? How do I load a tape? It's like, it gives you almost the experience of owning a real Auric or a real Dragon 32. And that's what I love about it.
Without the crappy keyboard.
Yeah, exactly. And just, I can't harbour enough about, and you've just said it, is having the same, I don't know how many options, we'll say 20 options for every single core, whether it's a Sharp X68000, whether it's a Sega Mega Drive, whether it's a SNES, whether it's a ZX81, or whether it's 1942 arcade. You've got the same options. And it's so quick. Boom, 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 boom. There's none of this. I mean, just what Dale alluded to there. You've got, don't get me wrong, things like Raspberry Pis. I recently bought the new Raspberry Pi 500. I've downloaded Pi Amiga on it, and it is just absolutely fantastic. Then you can download all these multiple image cartridge SD image things where you've got 32,000 games, you've got every arcade game, there's videos, there's screenshots. That's beautiful, that's lovely. But if you want to be a purist and you want to try and recreate what it was like back in 1983, Christmas Day, you've just opened up, you've got your ZX81, and it's like the Mister will give you that experience. Going through screenshots and videos of ZX81 games and pressing fire button to load it loses it for me. I just like the simplicity of the Mister. The fact it's even like old school DOS. It looks like an old computer running. I'm completely non-technical, unlike Colin. I mean, you're an expert in these things, but that's why I like about it. It just it really recreates the feeling of owning all these systems. I've watched enough videos because I was really not convinced. You had one. It was when I was down in London. I met Lewis, and he was talking about. I says, "Look, you need to convince me. Why do I need a Mister? Because I've got emulators, and they're perfect, And he's like, "Oh, I've got 200 arcade games." I goes, "I've got 10,000 arcade games. You need to convince me." And then he was talking about the lag and all this kind of stuff. Then, when I decided, when Craig, who's on the channel at the moment, he messaged me, goes, "Oh, there's a chance of Mister for 300 quid. I'll get it." And that's it. Yeah, I've got two. I've got a spare. So that tells you all you need to know. And I'm going to get off my high horse, but yeah, Misters, they're not cheap, but they're fantastic. But there are other options.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't knock the Pi-based things, but I prefer, my personal preference is for the Mister. Your emulation needs. And yes, it is emulating because it's not the genuine device. It just makes it feel like the genuine device.
Yeah. I mean, I can categorically state that I've still got quite a lot of machines in this house, but I can categorically state that as time goes on, I am going to thin my collection down. I'll probably end up with the Mister, a Commodore 64. I'll probably keep the Atari, and that'll be it. That'll pretty much be it. And then when I get moved into a sheltered accommodation and I've only got my room and I've got my commode and all this kind of shit, I'll just have the Mister. That's all I need. That's all I need. That will be. Put it this way: that I will be going out in a box before the Mister.
Yeah, I can't ever see you getting rid of a Vectrex, even if you're on your deathbed.
Oh no, that's really true. Yeah. I forgot about that one. Yeah, I'll be keeping that one. But yeah, who's mentioning that? Somebody was talking about. Yeah, it's Alex. Have you seen the price of the Vec
That's
Fever?
what I was grinning at.
Oh man, yeah. I saw. If people that don't know what it is, well, the Vectrex is that, which is it's an old gaming system that came with built-in TV, but it's vector graphics. It's a thing of beauty. You've got to see them. Imagine asteroids, but you can play it at home. It's fantastic. The Vec Fever is a cartridge that allows you to play backups of games. It also allows you to run sort of homebrew games, but more importantly, it's got more kind of power, and it allows you to like run certain arcade games. So you can run like the real Star Wars arcade game. You can run Asteroids. It's a fantastic piece of software, piece of hardware. You can get a thing called the Pytrex, which is a sort of a slightly cheaper version. It uses a Raspberry Pi, but the difference between a Pytrex and the Vec Fever is the Pytrex you can probably get for about 60 quid. Vec Fever, you're looking at £2,500. Now, these, I think, were sold for just over £100. It's one person makes them. And I think the guy has given up. And I still stand by, the greedy bastards on eBay are trying to sell them for just, what would that be, 30 times the price, something like that. It's just, At the end of the day, folks, it's a video game. It's a video game. That's all it is. Don't be an idiot and spend £2,000 on a cartridge, because let's face it, further down the line, when Colin and I and Craig have shuffled off and it's my daughter's kids and all that kind of thing, they're not going to give a shit about a Vec Fever. That £3,000 could have been in their inheritance fund, whatever. But yeah, that's just, I appreciate that it's supply and demand. People want them, so therefore people can charge it. But I wouldn't sleep at night knowing that I've just sold a cartridge to somebody for like $2,500. Whether there's, they might have loads of money in the world, but absolutely insane. Absolutely insane.
You're saying there about the I just noticed up there about the Retroid Pocket, Alex. That's my portable go-to. Alan knows what that one is. I got one of them on his Sato. That's the PoKiddy RGB 030. And the good thing about this is got a 720 by 720 screen, so it doesn't matter whether they're landscape or Tate mode games. It don't make a difference. The screen doesn't.
Is that the one that I've got? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the one that you had a shot of, when we were down in wherever it was. Aye, they're great. I mean, these little handheld Android PoKiddy, whatever they're called now, they're just mental. Can you imagine showing a 16-year-old Colin one of these when you were in an arcade in Wales, and somebody came up to you, listen to me, look at this thing, and they showed you this thing with a screen and every single game ever written on it?
I wouldn't have believed it.
You wouldn't have believed that it was possible. And now you're getting them. You can get these things for like 40, 50 quid now. Absolutely. Everything all right, Craig?
Yeah, sister's just turned up. She's gonna press the button when she needs me to get my mum into bed, because I have to support my mum's neck when she's being put into the bed.
Yeah, no problem at all. No problem at all. Yeah, we're just talking about the price of Vec Fever cartridges. There's two on eBay. One's going for starting bid £1,800, and somebody's got one going.
What cartridges? Sorry,
Vec Fever.
Vec Fever.
It's a Vectrex.
Vectrex Fever cartridge.
Yeah, it's a Vectrex cartridge. It allows you to. It effectively allows you to do what my Pytrex cartridge can do.
Saw it at the Zap event 2 years ago.
Yeah. There's
There was a Vec Pi and a Vec Fever. Is that right?
Yeah, Pytrex. That's what I've got.
Pytrex. Yeah.
Which does the same, only not quite as good. What I didn't actually realise, and somebody was telling me this, that the Pytrex, the Vectrex isn't actually doing anything. The Pytrex, it's almost emulating the Vectrex.
Everything is done within the cartridge and just put onto the display.
Yeah, it's just using the Vectrex display, which I was staggered and shocked that I hear that. That's mental.
That is mental. It's mental that you can interface that with a simple cartridge with the technology of the time.
Yeah, it's like a pass-through. The Vectrex case, all in all, is just being used as a pass-through. But I tell you what, thinking about that, just think how you could modernize that now. You could I'm going to write this game you'd never would have been able to have done back in 1981 on this cartridge, because I'm now going to use the display, the proper display, and basically it's going to do this type of vector lines, and you'll be going, wow, yeah. You know, that's where that demo with that dance comes through. You know, you'd never all those particle things are spinning around and it makes a woman and dancing and all that sort of stuff comes from. I'm going, you wouldn't have done that in 1981. What's all that? What's all that about?
Certainly got the processor speed, but you've still got the physical limitation of the scan speed.
Yeah,
the magnetic field's building up and collapsing again. That's still a physical limitation. While the new CPU of the Pytrex or the Vec Fever makes it a lot faster, there are still limits to it, just because of the technology.
Yeah,
still good.
Anyway, Dragon is screaming and right up to date. The Switch 2, you must have been buried under a rock if you're not aware of the Switch 2 has just been released, and I'm right in thinking that both you guys have got one, or you've not got one personally, Colin, but is it your son's
son
got one?
Has. My daughter was expecting one today. She had the notice it was delivered. Couldn't get all the Royal Mail through any other way. I had to phone them up, wait 25 minutes in a queue, spoke to them, and they says, well, that tracking number does not match the address on the package. So we've got evidence here that it hasn't been delivered to you. So get hold of who you bought it from and get them to sort it out, basically. So yeah, and the fact I am again with Tesco trying to get hold of their customer support, it's almost impossible to get past the bloody bots. It's chatbots here, chatbots there, automated assistants. Getting hold of a human is like banging your head against the wall.
Yeah,
and it's not the way we should be heading. The way to treat customers is just the way to make more money.
I had something similar. I ordered a part for a machine in my warehouse in Swindon, and the only place that stocked them was in Germany. So I ordered one, and they said, "Oh, it's been dispatched." Then I got a thing from an email from UPS to say that there's duty to pay, import duty to pay. So I got in touch with it. I says, you need to send me an invoice. So they sent me an invoice. I sent it to our finance. They paid it. And oh my God, it took 3 weeks to convince UPS that we had paid the invoice. And I called them a couple of days ago after we'd definitely paid it. And I think I spoke to 7 different people. I just kept getting passed from person to person to person to person. And yeah, their native language wasn't English. Some people would say Scottish people's native language isn't English, but there was a communication issue, a language barrier, which is frustrating as hell, because you're getting so frustrated when you're speaking to the 4th person and they're saying, can you give me the tracking number? And you're just going through the same thing over and over and over and over again. Yeah, what happened to the good old days when you phoned up and you just got a native English speaker answering the call, and you could tell them what you wanted, and it was rectified.
That's what he was with Royal Mail. I mean, once I got through to a human, he was a native English speaker, and he clarified the situation within seconds. Within seconds. How much time that would have saved? Just put me through to a human. I don't contact customer services, and if it's one of the things that's on the computers, on the bot's bloody list of things you can call for, I never contact them because I never need to.
And the
unusual things that I ever have to contact them.
The writing was on the wall with Royal Mail, though, because as soon as I wasn't able to phone up the post office sorting office in my own town, and you had to phone an 0800 number, the writing was on the wall. It was like, oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Right. That's when I know there's no point. No point anymore. Now I've got to go down there if I want to do something.
But we have drifted, and let's go back to the Switch 2.
You know, just before we go back on
got one, and now my younger son wants one for Christmas, so that'll tell you what it's like.
Just before we get back on the topic, who was I trying to phone? Have you ever tried to phone HMRC? Oh, God almighty.
Not for a long while.
Put it this way, when I phoned HMRC, I didn't have a beard. By the end of it, yeah, and the thing is, when you're waiting in the 40-minute queue, they say, if you've got a problem with your tax, please go into www.hmrc.gov.uk. Blah, blah, blah. So they're now telling you to go to the website. So surely the fact that everybody's going to the website to get help, they should answer my call within 2 minutes. But no, it's a complete opposite. I reckon they've got like 2 people in the entire UK that actually answer the phone.
If I can get the help on the website, I will. Trust me.
Exactly.
It's the last resort.
You know. Anyway, Switch. So Craig, you've got a Switch. Did you get it on release?
It actually turned up on the Friday, and I didn't even have one on ordered when you were talking about a Switch yourself, Alan. I don't know if it was on your channel or whether it was in Discord. I get a bit confused here, but you were talking about the Switch and saying, "Oh, I cancelled a pre-order, but my daughter wanted one." Right? On Wednesday, I was on another channel and we were talking about films, and I said, "No, my circumstances are different. I'm not even interested in a Switch 2. Couldn't give a shit about it." Blah 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 blah. And on Thursday, I was in the garden and they were talking. The mother was talking to the son. He's about 15, 16, and they said that they were looking to see if they could get a Switch 1 cheap. They were shouting over the call and said, "Oh, great, you're quite technical. Do you know where I can get a Switch 1?" And a light bulb moment came on because I'd noticed I'd actually been at work going through my old emails and I had £100 voucher. That had been given to me over a period of time. It had been from about 6 months ago. I'd obviously done some work and they'd given me this, or it might have been when I had my heart attack. They gave me this voucher or whatever it was. Hadn't used it. And I've got 2 Switch ones. I've got the original one I bought day one when I was still buying consoles and I was quite excited about getting one on the day that it was released. And I had a jailbroken one that I bought secondhand that I didn't even like the color of, but it was jailbroken. I got that after I met you, Alan, in London, when you showed me your Switch and you showed me Jarhead and all of this sort of stuff, Jugheads or whatever it was, right? And I bought that for £199, something like that, when I bought that. And it is an OLED; it's just a standard one like I've got. So I went over and said, "If you still want one, you can have my one." And they said, "How much do you want for it?" I said, "Same money I bought for it, £199. Is that all right?" And they went, "Yeah." And they gave me the money there and then. That with my voucher meant I had £299, and I was probably therefore only £100 away from having the Switch 2. So I went, "Have I got £100? Yeah, all right." And so I went to Amazon, and the funny thing was, it says you can have it tomorrow. I went, I thought this thing was. There was all sorts of stuff like.
I think it's sold out now, but I didn't notice.
Yeah, it's completely sold out now.
Yeah,
I got the money set aside to buy all the Christmas presents. Yeah. I got 3 of them already.
I love how you went from, "Nope, I'm not wanting a Switch, not interested." Oh, Switch.
Yeah. and it turned up on the Friday. That was
Oh
it.
my goodness! Excuse me.
Oh,
You didn't time it to Sue.
yes, I've seen the pups video.
What's it called, Colin?
This one is Sylvie.
Sylvia.
The other one is Evie. And yes, they are named after Pokemon.
She's
I
beautiful.
didn't name them.
I'm not into Pokemon.
It's feeding time, so there's going to be a bit of noise.
It's nothing
Here's,
to me.
here's Evie. Here's Evie.
Well, she's like the opposite, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, she's beautiful. Is she a collie? Yeah.
Yeah. Border collies, both of them.
Border
But I
collies,
bet they need a lot of walking.
Let's put it this way, 6 cats are a breeze to look after compared to 2 dogs.
Yeah, we had my uncle had a border collie on the farm. They run like mad. We called it Patch because they've always got one eye black, the other one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we called it Patch. Nothing inspiring there, is there? Or anything? But, that dog was like a
Jack
whippet.
Russell called Patch when we were kids. So yeah, it was.
Did anybody know somebody who had a budgie that's named didn't end in a Y? Like Cheeky or Jockey or Fluffy.
Oh, Joey from
Joey,
Carry On.
yeah, there's no it's
Carry On.
impossible.
Come on, Joey. Say Joe. Say.
No one of ours was called Bluey, so no, I don't think it was.
Joey.
Sorry, Kate, I'm conscious we're kind of not looking at the comments.
Well, you were asking about a
yeah.
Switch too, and I sort of think I've got to the end of that.
Yeah,
story.
yeah. So just
For
quickly
Kevin
before
Gallagher, they're
Yeah.
trying to. They are Retro Games Limited are trying to bring out a full-size A1200, but there are licensing issues which are stopping them cold. So yeah, they're trying to. They will if they can, but at the moment, no.
Kevin's also
as I say,
asking-
licensing issues. That's all.
Yeah, he's also asking, what do you think of the ZX Spectrum Next? Have either of you two chaps got a Spectrum Next? No.
You got 2. Well, you got 1 and a clone, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I've actually got 3 because I got one. I backed a Kickstarter 7 years ago, completely forgot all about it, and then I got an email in 2018 saying, "Oh, your Spectrum Next has been dispatched." I'm like, have I paid for that? I couldn't even remember if I bloody paid the thing. Anyway, it arrived and I did an unboxing and I'm like, "Whoa, this is the best thing ever." And then I never used it for 2 years, so I sold it. And then about 6 months ago, I had a hankering to get another one, as you do. And Steve very kindly sold me his N-Go, which is over there. You can see it there. It's 100% compatible. It's a Spectrum Next, but it's in my opinion, it's got a better keyboard. The Spectrum Next looks really, really nice. That's got a nice clicky keyboard. But then I thought, I wouldn't mind just having a Spectrum Next. So somebody was selling one for a decent price, and I bought it. And then one of my mates contacted me and goes, "Oh, I've got a Kickstarter 2. Apparently the Kickstarter 2 is the better one." And he was doing it for a decent price. I bought that. They're like my investment, so they don't get used. What do I think of them? I think they're fantastic. I use it primarily as my modern Spectrum. I can play, it's connected to a modern TV. Everything's on an SD card. You don't have to fuck about with the RF or anything like that. So, yeah, they're great. But again, if you've got a Mister, you can.
There are more cores out for it now. I believe that the Commodore 64 Amiga cores are imminent.
Yeah.
The QL core on there is it basically gives you a QL with more bells and whistles than you can shake a shitty stick at.
Yeah.
So if you've got a hankering for a QL, it'll even give a massive color palette for the QL. Now the QL has only got 8 colors in its original state, but this will increase that palette. So yeah, I mean, the next isn't something I go for personally, even if the QL core would is kind of tempting. I'm not a fan of the QL itself because I've tried the Mister core. I do have a Mega 65 on if I get enough money spare, I'll get one of them. But will I ever use it enough? I don't know, which is why it's sort of low on the list. Because, I mean, I've got real hardware for the Commodore 64 VIC-20 and Amiga 1200. I got the Spectrum recreation, and I got 2 Misters, a Raspberry Pi, and of course the PC for any emulation that don't work on any of them. So, yeah, I mean, they're good things. Don't get me wrong, but as much as I'd like one, and again, even if I could afford one, which at the moment I can't, but it's a possibility in the next few months. But would I ever use it? That's the question. Would I ever use it? Would I get my money's worth out of it?
You know what? I'm on one of the Spectrum Next Facebook pages, and you would not believe the number of Spectrum Next that come up for sale, and the person says, I got it a year ago and it's never been taken out of the box. It seems to be in fact, I'll give you a laugh. I made a comment, or did I? Yeah, I made a comment on somebody's Facebook page saying, what is it about how, you know, it primarily tends to be sort of I'm going to class myself as middle-aged. I think I'm probably taking the piss trying to say that now. I'm more old age, but anyway, men of a certain age, we have this hankering for nostalgia. And, oh my god, oh this thing's coming out. Oh, can't wait. You get it, and then you go, oh, brilliant, and then it goes on a shelf and you never ever use it. And in fact, my comment was actually, it was in the Chris Wilkins Fusion books, the Spectrum Next Annual. I got that for Christmas, and I was reading through it, and the guy was doing a big feature talking about it, and he goes, I read an interesting comment on Facebook, blah, blah, blah. I goes, that's bloody my comment. So he used my comment and he's put it into the next book. But yeah, there seems to be a thing about people crave all these things, Kickstarter things, you know, and they get them and then they just never use them. And I'm equally as guilty of that. I don't know why that is. I don't know what it is. It's like we like the idea of having it, but we're not going to use it.
That fulfills my Spectrum nostalgia.
This Spectrum, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And it's like what we were saying about earlier about the term retro. That is a retro computer because it's made to look like an old computer. Whereas that is an old computer, not a retro computer, but the whole hobby has taken the word and adopted it basically.
Yeah.
So while it's not used for other things, you know, it's not used like for this is the way I feel about it, and you can disagree if you like, but this is the way I feel about it. You got retro is new stuff made to look old, but the industry, the hobby has taken retro to mean the whole hobby. I mean, Ponder's Retro Goodness is my title, even though I mean I don't actually consider the old computers as retro computers. It's the new stuff, but it's quite unique to the hobby. I don't think it's an insult or anything. You don't call classic films retro films. No, you don't. Yeah. But the hobby community has basically taken the term and adopted it. And I think that's what it is in my mind. So yeah, I'm actually quite happy to use the term retro to describe the hobby. So yeah.
Well, I've got it in my title, but
yeah.
But you see, the reason it's got it in my title is I've never looked at retro in the way that Colin has just said. I don't go retro computer, retro records, retro films. My retro comes from the perspective of a retrospective. I've mentioned it a million times. It's a retrospective of something, and you can have a retrospective of a film. Right?
Yeah,
you can retrospectively look at a film. They call them classic, usually, when they're talking about old stuff. And even with comics, it's done with ages. It's like Bronze Age, Silver Age, Golden Age.
Remember the cold. I'm sure you don't want to hear me sneezing and blowing my nose on stream.
So mine's a retro zone because it talks about what I like, a retrospective, and zone as in Twilight Zone. So I put the two words together.
Yeah. So when you talk about retro, we're talking about retrospective. Yeah, I can get what you're saying, Colin. If you were going to some big shopping centre, you might have somebody who opens up a shop that sells imitation Commodore 64s, imitation clocks, imitation clothes from the 70s, and you could call that retro wear, whatever it is. So I do get what you're saying. Like these recreated machines, you could class them as retro machines, but you know, a Commodore 64 is an old computer. It's
an old computer, yeah. I don't consider the Commodore 64 a retro computer, as I just said. But
the
scene has been adopted as the retro scene.
Some
if you talk about retro, you automatically associate it with old computers.
Some people, though, Colin, can get all tied up because they'll call the Commodore 64 a personal computer. Well, it was. And they go, but it's not a PC.
It's
no,
PC.
No, people. When we talk about PCs, we're talking about people just get tied up. So they like to round things up into a bubble. You see what I mean?
Like
so I always talk about the Commodore 64 as being a computer, and I just shortened it to the word computer, right? Because if somebody says, "Oh, but is that a PC?" Well, yeah.
It's not an Intel architecture PC.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's like a whole new thing when you start to. It's like I didn't like that word cyberpunk for a long time. You know, what's this cyberpunk type stuff? You know, it's always like Victorian age, but with a sort of like modern. It's all set in the future, but it's all Victorian sort of like looking stuff. And I'm going right,
not like steampunk.
Yeah, and steampunk and all of that. You know what I mean? They got cyberpunk, steampunk, all of this sort of stuff. And I'm going, I get it, you know, but it's just, you know, some people have trouble explaining it. Some people don't like it. Some people, I don't give a shit about it.
It's what you make of it. If that's the way, you know, it's like everything else. It's all individual. If that's the way you want to feel about it, then I've got absolutely no qualms with that. I mean, it's a personal thing. And,
I love the Victorian age. That's why I like it. You know, that's why when at the end of Back to the Future 3, you've got a flying bloody steam train that's being turned around. You know what I mean? That's the best looking.
I didn't mean you. I meant anybody, by the way. Anybody. Whatever anybody feels about these things.
I still think Colin's in the front of that bloody train when it turns around. I'll tell you that now. So it's bloody Colin in that.
I think, yeah. I don't know what it is that annoys me about. There's certain phrases when people say "my bad," I just want to punch them in the face. Or if they say "super," like you go to Tesco and you
I'm guilty of my bad.
They say, "Oh, that's £4.99," and you go, "Beep." They go, "Perfect. I've just paid for my messages. Perfect." Anyway, yeah, like I don't know, retro games. It just annoys me. I don't like that phrase, and I think the fact that maybe if we were all 20 years old and we were looking back at computers that were made before we were born, then we could maybe call them retro computers. But because there's no computers that predates us, because we were all around when they all got invented.
So they didn't fit in the house.
Exactly. So it just annoys me. First world problems. I shouldn't be complaining about.
Yeah,
anyway.
you can sort of date things when it comes to PCs, can't you? Because when somebody turns around and says that's a DOS game, you go, "Oh, right, we're going that far back, are we?" Right? Because there really wasn't anything before DOS games when it comes to sort of like PCs. Mm-hmm. It's just that when you go back to what we consider to be our sort of like eras, don't you? You know, Pong and VIC-20s and Commodore 64 and Spectrums. You know, that's when people start using that retro word too much to me. You know, it's a Commodore 64 game. It's on tape, yeah. You know, but it's almost like I'm talking Russian or something to youngsters.
Whenever I'm asked about my hobby, I gotta be honest, I never refer to the old games as retro games.
No,
I always refer to them as old computer games, old arcade games, stuff like that.
I call them classic games.
The games can't be retro.
Yeah.
The games can't be retro. The games themselves, they're games.
Yeah. And it's amazing because you can't even say that cartridge is an old system, right? Because the Switch 2's got cartridge, right? So, that's been going for donkey's years, like for as far back as I want to remember. Magnavox, isn't it?
Magnavox Odyssey, yeah.
Odyssey.
Yeah,
And STO70 as I had.
Yeah. So that's where I'm going. Just call them the games as for that system.
Yeah.
Have you got a Commodore 64 game that I can go on? Oh yeah, all right. It doesn't matter that it's on cartridge or whether it was on tape or whether it was on disc or whatever. And let's just start
with these.
Yeah,
I got these. Yes, I got these along with the choplifter adapter.
Right. Yeah,
they were gifted to me. I don't have a Spectrum, but what I'm going to do is remember that VIC-20 thing I got for Denny to turn taps into WAVs.
Well, yeah, he asked me to approach it, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm gonna see if they'll work with this. See if I can actually turn them into tap files.
He went into his attic, by the way.
Yeah,
Alan, just so that you know, Denny, a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he found some VIC-20 stuff that he doesn't think have actually been converted or put into a format like tape. And because Colin's got an adapter that basically can convert that so that it does then work on a cartridge-based system or whatever, he was willing to sort of like send them to him. If I can't
send them yet, I don't want to pressure him because I know how busy he is.
Oh, yeah, honestly, he contacted me today and said, I've been in the attic again. I said, oh, for goodness sake, what you found now?
But yeah,
he's always asking me about, do you remember Gold Key Comics? And I go, yeah, I remember Gold Key Comics. Yeah.
Well, tell you what, Dale, just when I've got you on, actually, just give me a second. My friend Dave, Lawn Boys Post, who you'll be aware of, he was asking, let's have a quick look. He was asking for a particular comic, and I was thinking, oh, you might be able to help out.
Well, now you put me on the spot now. I mean, comics are quite diverse,
Wait a minute. Hang on a second. Anyway, you guys talk amongst yourselves. Sorry, I'm just laughing at Steve. If someone says my bad, I reply, your bad what? I'll need to remember that one.
There are certain things that give the I call it the red mist situation. When people say something and I go, oh, that's the worst thing you could say. I think there was a word back in about 10, 15 years ago when people were saying whatever. It kills a conversation. Whatever.
Whether makes my teeth itches and maze balls.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it's when people go, so he was a good driver. You want to go, fucking give me that and I'll snap your fingers, you little bastard. What age are you?
Lasers.
Laser.
Oh, they do these quotes. Yeah.
Air quotes. Yeah.
Anyway, what do you have you had a chance to try the Switch 2? What do you make of it?
Yeah. I actually said in the blog about it. I said I do think it's partial cash grab. I'm not bad about having it. I think there's a lot of people that will sell there'll be a lot of cheap Switch ones. People will get this one. I talked a little bit about the emulation. I didn't know whether you agreed with it or not, Colin. It's a translation layer, from what I can actually tell. It's a bit different.
Yes, I've heard. I haven't.
So basically, you put a cartridge in, it goes for a translation layer, and then it does it. And that's why you get different types of backward compatibility with it, because you could have shearing on graphics because it wasn't designed to go at that speed. It's going through. And then there are very forward-thinking companies out there that actually put in a cap, and you can actually turn that cap off, and there you are. You've now got the game running at 60 frames, and there was nothing that you needed to do other than click a little switch. And there you are. It's going at a phenomenal rate. I think it's a bit of a cash grab because when I hate it when they turn around and say £8 for Zelda as an expansion thing. And it gives you the same thing as a patch that you'd get for Mario Odyssey that costs nothing. It's just the £8 edition of Zelda is for an app that goes on your phone to make the game easier for you to play. You follow like a walkthrough. Well, I don't give a shit about that. Can I just have the 60 frames bit and the nice graphics like the Odyssey that costs you nothing? Do you see what I mean? So I think it is partial cash grab. But you're asking me, what do I think of it? I think it's like anything, to be quite honest. If you can afford it, it's great. If it's what you want, it's great. It's too early to say what the potential of it is. Nintendo have been the king of optimization for as many years as I can remember, because they never gave you the top end of hardware, but they optimized it so much that it was almost like going at PS5 levels.
Yeah.
But not one person has mentioned, and I don't know whether I was right in my blog, I actually turned around and said, is this the first launch since COVID of a console?
I think it is. I think it is.
So it's a significant event then, isn't it? Oh, that's the ice cream man. Not really, but I've got to go.
Yeah, no problem, mate. No problem. No, I was going to say, did the Xbox Series X not come out?
I think that was during COVID.
Yeah. I think the PlayStation 5. Yeah, because I mean, the PlayStation 5 came out, but you couldn't really get it for about a year. I don't know. My take on the Switch. I mean, I've said a few times, I don't have a PlayStation 5. I've got a PlayStation 4. I've got a Xbox Series X, which I think is like the sort of the best Xbox at the moment. But I play the Switch way more. Eva and I will sit here and we'll play Mario Kart. We'll play all these different games.
Yeah, I got Mario Kart on here.
Yeah, I mean, I know people are entitled to their opinions, and obviously Steve thinks it's a lot of money. Well, it's a lot of money. Some people think it's not really much of an upgrade. If you, I don't think the Switch is trying to take the custom from the PS5 or the Xbox. It's completely different gamers. Hardcore gamers play PC games. Then you've got guys who they play their Call of Duty and their FIFA. They're not interested in Switch. Switch is it's Nintendo people, so I don't think the Switch, I don't think Nintendo were ever trying to compete with Sony or Microsoft, because I think the hardware is underpowered compared to what a PlayStation 5 can do, but that was never really a thing that Nintendo were bothered about. It's not about if you're all about the graphics, then you're going to want to get a PC and a £1,500 graphics card or a PlayStation 5, whatever. It's to me, it's all about the games. And if you love your Switch, then yeah, you're going to want to get a Switch 2, because it does it. I mean, we were playing it the other day there. It looks great. Obviously it's got higher frame rate. It plays quicker. I'm going to disagree slightly with what Dell's saying about a cash grab. I can't remember who it was. Was it when the PlayStation 3 came out? The original PlayStation 3, it supported Linux. You could run Linux on it. It also supported PlayStation 2 games. And then when they brought out, I think they upgraded it, whatever, or the next model didn't have backwards compatibility, and people were like, "Oh, that's terrible," blah 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 blah. But it's not a God-given right that you should be able to play your old games on a new piece of hardware. If you say, for example, I don't know, a bad example, you buy a Ford Fiesta and you get some fancy phone holder thing for it, you go, that's great. You then get the next model of the Ford Fiesta and you go, oh, wait a minute, there's no way for me to put my mobile phone thing. Oh, fucking hell. Ford you're not going to go back to Ford. So this is ridiculous. That new Ford Fiesta that I've bought isn't compatible with my phone holder. So why should people, when they buy a latest version of console, unless of course they said this is going to be 100% compatible, but there's no God-given right that a new console should be backwards compatible. And the fact that the Switch 2 is backwards compatible, you can play your games for free. yeah, if you want to get an upgraded version, you've got to pay a bit, but then you're paying kids are paying money for a Lionel Messi bloody. It's the way of the world now. We live in a microtransaction world now.
I
Like it or
think
lump it.
backwards compatibility has stifled computer software progress, to be perfectly honest. Because you look, there's still code in Windows, which was there from Windows 95. So, and they can't get rid of it because it'll break things, because they're trying to be backwards compatible. Whereas it could be so much cleaner. I mean, there's not a single person alive on this planet who knows Windows inside out. Not one. It's all no one person knows everything. You've got people who know good part of every bit, but no one person knows the lot. It's become such a behemoth. Yeah, and that's mainly down to backwards compatibility.
But when Sony are putting out a new console, let's be honest, they're thinking about their core audience, which is going to be, I don't know, 16 to 25-year-old males. Yep, that's going to be their core sort of thing. That geographic of customer is not remotely interested in being able to play a PlayStation 2 game. They couldn't give a shit.
on the subject of the backward compatibility, I think it was surveyed, and it's only like about 2 or 3% of people use the backward compatibility for PlayStation 1 on the PlayStation 2 even. So
And if you were Mr. Sony and you took the decision to say, yep, the PlayStation 6 is going to have full compatibility with PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you're going to then somebody's going to try and load up Shrek on the PlayStation 2, on the PlayStation 6, then they're going to write to you and go, by the way, this is ridiculous. I got this from my son and we tried to play Shrek and it doesn't work. You're going to go, you know what? I'm not going to fucking bother supporting backwards compatibility. So the way I look at it, it's a bonus. It's a bonus. And the Switch 2, I believe, is mostly backwards compatible. So, it's a bonus that we can play. And if they're going to charge you £8 for an upgrade,
For me, the best thing about the Switch 2 is I got a Switch 1 for nothing.
But here's the big thing. People are talking about, for 400. Well, I mean, it's four. I don't know what it costs. Is it 375 for a standalone?
Yeah, I think
Switch,
it's 400 and something with Mario Kart or something.
Yeah, 430 with Mario Kart. So I think it's 375. So you could buy a 4-year-old PlayStation 5 for the same money or less, actually. But the Switch, you can play it in your bed.
Yeah,
you can play it in the bath.
Hey, right, enough about them. Me. Sorry.
I was just disagreeing with what you were saying, Craig. I was saying how a lot of people are sort of complaining about the backwards compatibility and having to pay and all this kind of stuff. And I think Sony, they kind of shot themselves in the foot when they released the PlayStation 3, because they announced, the new Sony PlayStation 3 is going to have backwards compatibility. And then I don't know whether it's because people were complaining about it or probably because it was costing them too much money. They had to have certain chips to support the PlayStation 2. So they ditched it. Then people were complaining about it. So that's why you don't really get... I can't just pick a random Xbox game and put it into my Xbox Series X, and it probably won't work. And what annoys me is people have this expectation that it should be backwards compatible. I think it's a bonus, and that's why I think the Switch 2 is largely compatible. So thumbs up for me. And Colin rightly said, companies, when they release a new console, if they've got it they come up with a brand new console, go, what do you think of this? This looks fantastic. But does it play PlayStation 1 games? Oh shit, we're going to have to modify it so it plays 10-year-old games that only 1% of people
that you're saying about, because the first release of these new consoles, as they were, the PlayStation 2 first release supported the PlayStation 1, the later ones didn't. I think the marketing behind that is you get people into the console first and they can still play their old games. And then when the console is established, you no longer need that backwards compatibility for the next release.
To me, it's a huge topic. it's one that I've been wanting to get to grips and find somebody that I can have a chat with about for a long time, because ever since the PC came out, there's been backward compatibility. It's like it still recognizes the old memory structure 2, 4, 6, 16, 64, 1 meg, low RAM, high RAM, blah, 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 blah. Somebody said it's going to take somebody with a heck of a lot of gumption to turn around and say, I'm writing a motherboard from scratch. I'm writing a motherboard from scratch. And it will be from that moment on, this will be the new form factor, because every time a motherboard comes out, it's still got back to that old architecture, those days, even though we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Right? It's just there. Right? So there's that type of conversation that you can have with backward compatibility. Then you've got the other backward compatibility of, is it something that we want now or don't want now, right? Because there are some people that say they will not live without it, because when they get rid of their old console, they want to still play their old stuff, and so they want to play it on the new one. And there are other ones that say, no, this is a brand new console. From here on, it should be this supersonic thing, and everything should be new, and therefore you've got all your old consoles. So you still got your PS3, you still got your PS4, and all of that, and that sort of stuff. And I sit on the fence in regards to that a little bit, because I always turn around and go a little bit like Alan. If it works, great. Doesn't work, tough shit. If you've sold your old console and then basically
look back in the day, if you like, when we went from a Commodore 64 to Amiga.
Yeah,
there was no backward compatibility there.
And to me, it's there was another thing that I wanted to say to Alan, and that was the reason I like the Mister so much. The interface is, it reminds me of the old MAME interface, where it was just a text.
Yeah.
There was none of this. Here's a picture and here's a database of all that, what that game was about, who wrote it, and all of this sort of stuff.
I still use the command line for MAME.
It takes me back to those days of 1998 of downloading
I said that.
MAME.
I think when you nicked away earlier on, Craig, I was saying that to Colin. I says you were talking about having the console sort of version thing. I like the fact that mine's doesn't look like a console. It's completely unobtrusive. It's a little white box that, unless you knew what it was, you'd go, "What the hell's that?" Well, I don't know. And when you switch it on, you get a black screen. You pick the core. Poof, Dragon 32, ready. You think, now what do I do? It recreates having original hardware, and that's what I love about it.
Scares teenagers to death. It's like that. It's like that video I saw on YouTube once, where it was two teenagers looking at a land phone. They said, "What do you mean we have to turn a dial round? And what's this? You know, like, it's like, how do we make a phone call on this thing? You know, and all of this sort of stuff. It's like that. It's like, what do you mean ready? You know, and all of that sort of stuff."
Right, Craig, before we kind of crack on, Dave was asking a big plea to all my UK 2000 AD and Judge Dredd fans.
Oh, right, okay.
There was a Judge Dredd, and in fact, I did copy and paste it. I'll copy and paste it in the comments, but I think you can only put so much in the comment. Where is it? Hopefully you're going to see that. Oh, fuck, it's only copy. Right, what he's saying was there was a Judge Dredd annual in the late 80s when he fought and totally kicked his arse, mind you, Dracula. I loved this as a kid. One of my favourite Dredd stories ever. Can't find it anywhere online. I just want to read it again. Can anyone help me out?
I can tell you now that would be a very, very, very specific year. And the reason for that is that Dracula was under license under Marvel. Under something called Tomb of Dracula, right? And it ended with Gene Colan in like 1980 something or other. So 2000 AD would have difficulty having Dracula as the word Dracula in the comic because of license. So I'm not a total 2000 AD buff, but I bet you I can probably find that out for him. Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm just looking there. There's been an update. Somebody's found it on. It came out in 1989. Somebody's found it on eBay. But Dave doesn't use eBay. But this guy's bought it for him, and he's going to give him the money. So he's got it. But yeah, it came out in 1989.
Yeah. And the one thing that I can tell you about 2000 AD is that they have now all released them out as an omnibus, a hardback omnibus, so you can actually buy them in volumes. And therefore, the whole reprinted gallery of 2000 AD is there. And they did that because of the American market. The Americans go mad for 2000 AD. Absolutely mad. Same for Transformers. Transformers was a UK license over here for Marvel. See what I mean? And yet they never released it really as a comic over there in the States. So people are going, when are they going to bring an omnibus out of Transformers? I'm going, who wants that shit for? Right? But apparently, you know, it horses for courses again.
I saw somebody, my sister's a member of I'm going to say it. I think it's called Retro Toys, and it's toys from the 70s and all that kind of stuff.
Right, yeah, okay.
But she's always putting my name. Well, do you remember this? And there was one. Do you remember? I mean, you had the annuals. You had obviously Beano, the Dandy, Sparky. But there was one that I saw. I'm like, Christ, I remember that. It was called Cor, C-O-R, with a gorilla.
Yes, gorilla.
Yeah.
I saw that a couple of days ago. I'm like, bloody hell, I forgot all about that one. Cor, yeah. I love that.
And annuals, it's like somebody said the other day, I think annuals is something that was a UK phenomenon. And I used to turn around and say to them, I said, you do know that comics have had annuals for years. It's just in the States, they were just double-sized issues of the original one in a sort of like glued spine. It was a 64-page annual. We had them as hardcover reprints, usually done by a company like Grand Dreams. Anybody remembers Grand Dreams? That was most of the annuals were printed by the same publishers. You see what I mean? There was a Look-In annual, there was a Bunty annual, there was, you know, all the stuff for the girls and the boys and TV stuff. There was A-Team annuals. They were mostly all done by one publishing thing. Mm-hmm. They always had the price in a triangle in the bottom right-hand corner that some sod had come along and cut the corner off.
Kevin. Very closely, just a smidgen followed by the Amiga 1200.
Believe it or not, my favorite retro computer is the 128, and I only had that for the shortest period of time.
Yeah. And the cat's name is Eddie.
What's your favorite old computer, Alan?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's got to be the Commodore 64.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why. I have.
Same here. I mean, the Amiga is a far better computer, but the Commodore 64 it just does it.
I just don't have I don't have the nostalgia. I think what it is. I think the Commodore 64, like it was off its time. You could tell a Commodore 64 game. You could put a screenshot of a Commodore Amiga game, and somebody could say to you, is that a Mega Drive? Is that a Master System? Is that an NES? Is it a Mega Drive? Is it a SNES? You wouldn't really know. I think the Commodore Amiga was like a computer version of consoles. And I just don't have... It's weird. Even though the Amiga... I mean, I got my Amiga in 1988 and I had it until probably about 4 years. I've got very, very, very little nostalgia for it. It's the most bizarre thing.
I probably worded that wrong. What it is with me, right? I only ever had a Commodore 128 in the 2000s, right? Remember, I went from a Commodore 64 to an A1000 in 1985.
I'm going to let Eddie in.
Right? And even the Commodore 64 was only just transferring to that new wedge-shaped design the year before it with the C, right? It was my friend that had a 128. Right now, he had a 128, and this wedge design was carried on, right? And it eventually looked like an A500. But remember, it was my friend that had the 128, and I always was quite impressed by it. I said, do you know what? For an 8-bit computer, that's bloody powerful. So you just think about this. With a press of a button and turning it on, you've got a Commodore 64 in there. But you turn that on, you've got 128 mega RAM. You've got these, editors in there. You've got a sprite editor built in. Jesus Christ, if I could have, had that back in the day. And you've got a machine code monitor in it. You've got a Z80 processor in there as well as a 6502 processor in there. Okay, it had its faults and all this sort of stuff. But if you were to ever think about what bits and bobs would you like to have put into an 8-bit computer to make the ultimate 8-bit computer, the 128 ain't far away from being like the top tier of everything. I mean, it was the most the most sold computer, the Commodore 64, and it had on top of that this. So it was the 64 with this. Well, we can't lose then, can you? Because it wasn't like that +4 and that Commodore 16 and all of that sort of stuff. We are talking.
Don't let
this is the end of the 8-bit line, and here is our stamp. That's what I went, and that's why I'm saying, do you know what? Of all the 8-bit computers, the one that had the most potential but never got used, is the 128. Is the 128. Just think, I've seen Elite on the 128, brilliant. Elite on the 128, marvelous. You know what I mean? You look at Kickstart 128, you're going, what the bloody hell's extra in that then, other than a few courses that they've had tagged on? They haven't changed hardly anything in it.
Did the C6, did the C128, did that have the same SID chip? Yeah, just a standard SID chip. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you didn't need anything, extra. It was it. We always turned around and said that the difficulty with the Commodore 64 really was just the speed of the 650 processor. It was just clocked low. If it had been a bit faster, it was wasn't it a 2 megahertz one in the 128?
It was 2 megahertz, and you could use 2 megahertz, but it blanked the screen.
Yeah, because of the timing of the timings, isn't it? Yeah.
Some games would use the feature that when it got to the bottom of the display, it'd switch to 2 megahertz mode, and then when it got back up just before it started drawing again, it'd switch back to 1 megahertz mode, which would allow some games to run faster.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys listened to the last Nice and Nasty had Frank Gasking on, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic that in 1988 he was given a VIC-20. That was his computer, a VIC-20 in 1988.
Yeah.
And he was buying games for it. Fantastic.
I loved my VIC-20, I tell you. Loved it. But I tell you what, I was the most privileged person in the world to have an Amiga in 1985.
I was going to say, that's incredible. That's mind-blowing.
You imagine I had Deluxe Paint in 1985. Now,
that's mental.
I will turn around and say this: it was the bloody lean years for computer games. It was bugger all.
I mean, did that have just 256 megabytes of memory? Megabytes of memory.
My one did have. Mine came with 256, but they said 56 pack clicked into the front, so I had to take the cover. I had to take the plastic cover off the front and then push this metal. Honestly, it was like a heat sink frame with a bloody cartridge connector pushed in, and then I had to clip the thing back onto the front. And there you are. I had fun. That actually arrived 2 weeks after I got my Amiga. I had 256. The game came with. Honestly, my A1000 came with a portfolio of discs. There were 4 discs. There was Kickstart, Workbench, and there was a game. What was the game? Can you remember? Do you know what the game was?
See that game, Craig?
I can't remember.
Game with what was it?
Yeah,
it's actually a fairly decent game.
It starts off with the word mind.
Oh, Mind Walker. Mind Walker.
There you go. That was and it came with my A1000. That is the weirdest game ever. You ever play that game?
I haven't actually.
I love that game.
She's not happy. That's Lily. That's a different one.
You look at that game, and it's the biggest pile of shit. And I keep saying I'm going to do a retrospective of it, and I will, because it is the first game I loaded it into my A1000.
I just remember getting a magazine. I don't know what it was, like Computer User or something. And Jeff Minter was going on and on about this Mindwalker on the Amiga 1000. How many wrote it? Who actually wrote the game? Who
Oh, Bob. Crying out loud, you're asking me now. A well-known programmer.
Bob Dinnerman? No.
Back in the day. I can't quite remember. He did a famous game.
It's not Bob Dinnerman.
Colin's looking, so
Bill Williams.
Bill Williams, that's it.
19. I mean, how you must have been popular with your mates back in 1985. We were all playing. We were playing Spectrum games and conversation. Well, you were playing an Amiga. It's like the future.
Yeah, I had it up in my bedroom. I loved it. The keyboard went underneath the and slotted in underneath everybody. When Defender of the Crown came on, when Defender of the Crown came out officially, and I loaded that up and I took it round to my, there was this family that I used to go to a computer club on, and I took my A1000 round to see to his dad, for their dad to look at. Actually, to be quite honest. I loaded Defender of the Crown. He said, I have never seen anything as impressive in my life as that Defender of the Crown symbol with the gold sheen.
Yeah.
It was just color cycling. We know now, it was just a color cycle, right? But it's just wow, And this was a time where I was going to things like the Novotel Hotel, to see Commodore shows, and all that sort of stuff. I actually met Jeff Minter at a Novotel Hotel. So yes, I look back at my Amiga days and I go, do you know what? I spent years with just public domain discs. Fred Fish discs. I bought Fred Fish discs by the thousands. They had numbers. I swear they must have just said, we're going to send it to that bastard. Look, he's ordered another 20. Look here. And they all had numbers, 210, 211. One was utilities. Well, there was games, utilities, 3D, all of this sort of stuff they came out with. You know what I mean? And a lot of it was shit. But I'll tell you what, there was some great stuff in there. The utilities are the things that I love the most because they had things like Mandrabolt generator, and I go, Mandrabolt generator, yeah. And I just
that thing took over 8 hours on a Commodore 64.
Yeah, and I was just waiting for the screen to fill in with fractals and all sorts of stuff, and then ray tracing ones came out and all sorts of stuff, and I was in my element. I literally just went, this is the future.
Did you never actually think, wait a minute, I've got this incredible piece of hardware, but I don't have anything to actually play in it? Did you not sort of think, I've bought this 3 years too early?
Well, because how did I know I was buying it 3 years too early? I just looked at the potential of it. Really, I mean, I was disappointed because everything I was playing was an Epix title. It was like, oh, not another frigging World Games, not.
Yeah.
Or I would play. Oh, I'll tell you the other thing, Colin. The other thing is that they were the strategic SSI or SCI, flipping strategy games, right? And if I say another one of those, I'd be like pulling my teeth out. It was when Cinemaware came out and when Marble Madness came out. That's when I started to
Fairy Tale Adventure. That was a
Fairy Tale Adventure, which I told you. Not long back, I actually loaded one of my old saves and I continued and I finished it off.
Was that fairly recently?
Nice.
How long did it take you to finish that game?
I told you I loaded one of my old saves.
Yeah.
I was 3/4 of the way through. That's what I can tell you. I was 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah.
Took me another 10 or so hours. But I'm not the fastest. I'm not the fastest thing in the fastest tool in the bench. You know what I mean? I like to go around and then go, I bet you there's something in this. I bet you there's something behind this tree, bastards. And I'll be going through all the bushes and going around in a circle and like this, only to find out that I've been around all those trees and there was sod all there.
The thing
Again, the programmer is laughing at me because he's put something there that he knows that I'm going to be going around looking at every inch of it, and there's sod all there.
the thing
You
that
know what
most
I mean? It's like,
I remember seeing Fairy Tale Adventure for the first time, and just the organ music was just staggering. It's like bloody hell.
and the
This
way
is,
that the page turned over,
yeah,
it turned over and it was talking about the Free Brothers, and and all of that.
It was like open world. It was like a Grand Theft Auto of its day, or Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, the dynamic music, that changed
That's
the
right.
threat level increased, and I think there's a swan in it. Yeah, there is, isn't there? There's a swan that you have to capture and land and go around on.
Craig, Keith's asking, did you play any of the strategy games, North and South, Megalomania, and my favourite, Syndicate? Yeah, I played Syndicate.
Yeah, of course, I did indeed.
That was before, what's his name? What's he get? Bullfrog. What's his name again?
Oh, Paul Molyneux.
Yeah, before he went a bit mental and promised us the earth.
Yeah, I actually didn't think Sinbad and the Throne of the Falcon by Cinemaware was a bad game.
I remember seeing screenshots.
Everybody looks at that game and says, "What a messy looking game that thing is, hitting the Cyclops in the eye with a slingshot and all this sort of stuff, and all of this sort of stuff." I said, "I played Aztec Challenge where all you did was bloody duck and jump, I tell you, and you did that for about 5 minutes. And you're telling me that this is messy and he's climbing up, to try and get to the top of this thing." I said, "This is gorgeous compared to that."
Yeah.
A game.
We loved Aztec Challenge at the time as well, especially the music.
And it makes me laugh that most people don't know there were two versions of that. There was a sideways scrolling sort of like run and jump type thing that came out for the Atari 2600 a year later, and Paul Wokes had brought out his quintessential Aztec Challenge with the
sort of
with the arrows and everything else.
Yeah. Fantastic. Listen, folks, we're going to wrap it up.
Of course.
Because I've promised Ava and I go down to the canal with the dogs. It's going to get quite late. Just before we go, there's a channel, Slopes Games Room. He's quite a big. He's got 200,000 subscribers. He does all these kick scammers and these big history offs. I'm not a massive fan of what he does, but he's a nice guy. But he had an issue about a week ago, and from what I gather, he was making a video about some console that was apparently going to be a Kickstarter, and this console was going to support, it could play every Sega game, including the Dreamcast, and he effectively called the guy out. But what he also did was he signed up to a WhatsApp group where the Kickstarter guy was talking, and it was all in Spanish, and he downloaded the entire contents and put it on his Google Drive. And then I think some AI bot scanned through the chat and found some hate speech.
It was a symbol of hate speech, so you can just.
It was a hand symbol with a symbol on there and on the cuff, I think, is what he explained it.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Cheers, Tony.
The trouble was he downloaded it wholesale and uploaded it without looking at the contents. It was photograph. It wasn't the language. It was the photographs, the pictures that were there, and that's what got it.
And what happened was he then got a message from Google to say that we're going to delete your channel, and all because he had something. So it wasn't even related to his channel. He was going to get his entire Google account closed. Yeah. So if
it was a Google thing.
He got caught in as many ways as a lot of people have done when they're sending zip files through anything, like through email or whatever it is. You will always find that a zip file or anything that's in a drive that's being transferred or ownership from one place to another will have a scanner on it of some sort that goes right through it. And say, "I'm sorry, you can't send executables, you can't send all of this." That's what happened to him with his drive, because he was sending it to his Spanish translator. He kept calling it. I thought that what he meant by that was he was sending it to a friend who's Spanish who was going to look at it. Right. Or there was a Spanish translator program that he was going to be. I couldn't work out which way it was.
Luckily,
I think it was the former, an actual person.
Yeah. But luckily for him, he's obviously friends with a lot of big YouTubers, and I watched the video earlier on. There was like 3 people who actually worked for Google got in touch with him, and they managed to not delete his channel. But it just goes to show just how well. I mean, in a lesser capacity, my Facebook page. I opened up a Facebook account 2000. I don't know when it'd be 2000. Whenever Facebook started, I think I had it for 16 years, and then I went to log in one day on my phone, and it's like password is not correct, and then eventually got in, or I didn't get in, and it said your Facebook account's been suspended. I'm like, what? And it says due to like illegal images or something like that. So somebody's obviously gone into hacked my account, used it to spam porn sites or something.
Yeah.
And my Facebook was gone, and I had no recourse. I put in appeal, and then you just put in, you could only type in like one sentence, and I thing with it, and then about an hour later it says your appeal's been rejected. You cannot appeal again. And that was it.
Again?
Gone. Boof.
And no human involved.
16 years of posts, memories, photographs. I mean, fortunately, I do kind of tend to back up stuff, but yeah, it just goes to show that something like that, and that YouTube can be so fragile. It's mental. It can just suddenly disappear. Be warned, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, listen, it's 5 past. I like to annoy people with OCD. It's coming up. It's 1:57:25. I'm not going to take it to the 2-hour mark. Massive thanks to you, Craig. Thanks to you, Colin. It's always a pleasure to have you lads on. And finally, thanks to everybody that's watching. I'll be back on Sunday. Hopefully, get the Ocean 64 games put to bed. I think that's the 4th video I've got to do. So, until next time, folks, have a great weekend. And as always, thank you very much for watching.
He's waving.